Welcome to the Creative Synergy Show. I'm your host, Coach Sin, and we are talking about mind, body wellness for writers and other creative professionals. And I've been ruminating on getting this episode out as I record this. It is the month of May, and May is Mental Health Awareness. So I wanted to be able to drop this episode within that parameter, and I've been struggling to get to it, which makes it even more poignant because mental health matters no matter what month it is. So it really doesn't matter when this comes out because we should be talking about this stuff or be open to talking about this stuff regardless. There shouldn't have to be a hashtag or a special date that we set aside and we talk about struggling mentally. And one of the things that I noticed for myself as I'm trying to prep this episode and get an outline and so forth is how fake it was. And I've been noticing a lot lately with some of the podcasts that I watch, how fake they are. And
it's all fake, meatball. All fake.
And that they are very polished and everybody is, talking out of their ass, essentially, of what manicured little highlight reels that they want to drop in. And it's all the same thing over and over again. And you can see it in the thumbnails. Everyone has the same title. Everyone has the same look. The problem is when you click into these videos, you get nothing from them. The title doesn't match the content, and I'm tired of it. And I started realizing I started doing the same thing so that I could keep up with the Joneses, they say. And in doing that, and in chasing the metrics, or as Eric Thomas says, you're chasing the scoreboard.
You can't scoreboard watch and play the game at the same time. You got to play the game.
I found that I started to lose myself, and the reason that I started doing this in the first place, trying to be too polished, that's not the message. Okay, it's exactly the opposite of why I wanted to start doing this. I used to follow a man named Greg Plitt. Before video blogs were a thing, social media podcasts, he would do videos and they were raw and they were real and they were off the cuff and they were just authentically Greg Plitt. So I noticed the more I started to try to be polished with these episodes, the more I couldn't stand doing them because they're not me. And I'll be honest with you guys, I struggled to put these out to begin with because a lot of you know, as writers, we don't like to be the face. We're behind the scenes. We're creating internally. But I am a coach. I am a wellness coach and a fitness coach. And the stuff that I talk about is poignant enough for me to break down some of my own barriers and do things out of my own comfort zone. But I found it exceptionally interesting that perfectionism, trying to do an episode about mental health and creative clarity, that perfectionism is what was holding me back this whole time. So that being said, what we're going to talk about today is how we get stuck in our creative process and some simple tips and steps you can take to unstick yourself in those moments. And surprise, it is not barreling through the block using your mind, even though as creatives, that is one of our best resources. It's actually, like I said, using your body. And it's the physiology of getting up and moving around that's actually going to help you to move forward through the project, rather than trying to charge through it with grit. That's admirable, but more often than not, it doesn't actually work, and you get deeper into writer's block or a creative block of some sort. So what I actually want to talk about here in this episode is how movement can improve mental health and creative clarity and get you out of that rut that we sometimes find ourselves stuck in. And that's even if we're not working on a creative project. The act of physically moving your body is beneficial in multiple ways, and we're going to discuss that right now. So the first thing I want to talk about in this particular episode is distraction. As I'm trying to record this, multiple distractions. I've had to stop and start many different times, but it relates to when you're getting a creative idea the spark of one, and you get it in the most inopportune moments, whether it's in the shower. We've all had that happen before, I'm sure. Or in my case, it was during a yoga class. Now, in yoga, you're supposed to relax, shut your mind off, and all those things. I can't do that because my mind's always active. So I remember a particular yoga class uh, doing the last part of the session where you're supposed to be, laying down, focusing on nothing, getting in tune with yourself. Instead, I'm getting a novel idea. And I couldn't wait for the class to be over so that I could get up and I could go and write this idea down. So we get ideas in the most inopportune places most of the time, and it's up to us to capture those like fireflies in a jar. But um, sometimes it can be a distraction, and then when you actually finally do sit down to write it, you're distracted by other things. So in this day and age, there's multiple ways that you can be distracted from actually, working on your craft, which is television's right there, social media, people outside banging doors, stuff like that. Uh, it can really take you out of your headspace and start really it starts to grind on the flow of your creativity. I'm sure everybody remembers in The Shining when Jack Nicholson's character Jack is writing and Wendy keeps interrupting him, and he says,
Wendy, let me explain something to you. Whenever you come in here and interrupt me, you're breaking my concentration. You're distracting me. And it will then take me time to get back to where I was. Understand?
who cannot relate to that as a writer? Especially if you have a busy household or noisy neighbors. You have to continuously start your line of thinking over again. And a lot of people don't understand that as creatives, which is why when I would work in 9 to 5s in an office space and they wanted me off the cuff to just come up with the magical tagline, it doesn't work that way. I said, give me a minute, don't talk to me, and you'll have it. But if you're constantly yammering in my ear, that's not going to help me. So it's our different mental state of how we work and how we create. We need that calmness in our brains to be able to explore our craft in the manner that it's supposed to be explored. That's why more often than not, it's a good idea to go and take a blank sheet of paper or a journal and just go out into nature or somewhere where you can sit down and be quiet and you can jot all these thoughts down. Because if you're like me, you've got a lot of thoughts going on, and it's beneficial to purge them in a sense and get them out from here and onto the page, because otherwise you split infinities, sort of like that movie Split, where he's got multiple personalities. You've got multiple ideas running around in your head, and it's up to you to harness them and get them almost like wrangling cattle. You need to harness, wrangle, and get them into the different corrals. And I know I'm using a lot of different analogies right here, but that just goes to show what I'm talking about with the different aspects of a creative brain. But it's up to us as creatives to center our thoughts is the main thing that I was trying to get at there. And sometimes it's hard to do when you're being pulled in several different directions. We all have a lot of different things going on, and a lot of the times that starts to get heavy, not just in body, but obviously in mind. So when stuff is weighing on you like that, that's what I mean for you to go and write it down and just get it out of you. Particularly, take, for example, you want to have a conversation with someone, or you think that you do, but you don't know if you do or really or not. Write that conversation down. You'd be surprised that it doesn't actually alleviate some of that stress that that's been building up, or just trying to again regulate your thoughts into the day to day. I am not opposed or above doing checklists for the day, because again, my mind's so active that I will actively forget things that I just thought of 2 seconds ago. And it's not because I've got some kind of screw loose, it's because our minds are consistently like there's multiple different thoughts, like I was saying. So, my first tip for you in that respect with the distraction is to write it all down. Right, get it out onto paper, or if you prefer, your digital notebook. The only thing with that is there's so many other distractions on the computer once you open it up, especially if you're already connected to the internet. Boom, you're on the internet. So I prefer old school pen, journal, and then you can harness your thoughts in a manner where you're now in some semblance of control over them. You're not in control of a lot of things. You can control your thoughts, and that's one of the better quotes that are out there, is that you can't necessarily control the things that happen to you, but you can control your response to it, and that comes down to your line of thinking. So it's in that physical act of writing that can break you out of that vicious cycle of multiple thoughts and get you into more of a flow state. The other aspect of not just being a creative, but being a human being in general is that anxiety, pressure, a lot of it is internal pressure. And again, the racing thoughts can really start to do a number on you in multiple different ways. They say that worry and stress affects the body physically as well. So, if you're really consistently focused on, say, doom scrolling, doom thinking, I have a tendency to think of the worst possible scenario just so I can be prepared for it. That's not conducive to good creative work because your thoughts are stuck essentially in the future of something that has not even happened yet. Have you ever done that? You're thinking of all the what ifs so that you can try to mentally prepare for them. And then more often than not, none of those things happen. So you've gone and gotten your body all riled up and tensed and ready to take on these problems for no reason whatsoever. And uh, it's something that I'm consistently working on, and it's almost difficult to break those patterns. But it's essential that you do if you're in a similar boat, because otherwise you continue to repeat these patterns and you're constantly in a state of heightened awareness, which sometimes is good, but not at all times. You need to be able to relax. And it's also been said that if you are in a like consistently anxious like that, you're not even getting proper sleep, because when your head hits the pillow, again, your mind is still racing. So all the anxious thoughts are still with you, even though the body seems to be at rest, the mind isn't. So that's why you wind up waking up and you don't feel rested, is because you're still heightened even throughout the night when you think that you're sleeping. So one of the ways to break up that sense of urgency with, the stress and anxiety of the projectile future of doom that you are having, all the dystopian thoughts, is to move, which is the basis of this particular episode. And now, when I used to compete and I was getting into these kinds of thoughts and feelings, the first thing that my coach would say is, "Did you work out today?" If the answer was no, invariably she'd say to go and work out. And that's because your physiology changes when you start to move around. In my case, it was working out. It could be anything, a walk, walk your dog, do some stretching, anything that breaks up the pattern of just sitting and thinking over and over and over again, replaying the thoughts in your head. Because when you are using your body, it takes away from those thoughts. It's a very subtle science of it, and I'm not going to break down into the specifics of it, only to say that when you are doing a physical exertion, you can no longer ruminate on like the doom. And if you are, it's because you're not putting enough effort into your workout. So if you physically, not so much drain yourself, but you physically push yourself and it gets your energy up, you'd be surprised that it doesn't flush out those thoughts. Now, are they going to creep back in later? Yeah, they do sometimes, but rinse and repeat. And then the other thing is to start to figure out that these patterns are not good for you. They're not conducive to, uh, a thriving life, because all you're doing is you're living in fear of the unknown, which we can't do that. It's fine to have a healthy thought of the future and be preparing, for your future. But if you're preparing for worst case scenarios, well, now you're like the crazy survivalists in the movies that are expecting like the end of the world to come. And that again is going to leave your mind scattered in a way that you can't focus on your creative work. So we've already established that the physical act of writing in a journal helps you to harness those thoughts, and then getting up and moving around, whether it be a workout, a walk, what have you. If you're near a beach and you surf, outstanding. Getting into nature is amazing. You get the sunlight on your face, and it breaks up, again, the pattern of just sitting and staring at a screen. We stare at too many screens, and then it starts to really affect us in multiples of ways. And a lot of those ways, we've come to find out, are not healthy at all. Studies have been shown that it's the loneliest generation in history, because everyone is more connected than ever on social media and so forth, but nobody's actually having conversations. We're more disconnected than ever, whereas social media and phones in our pocket should be applicable to consistent interaction. Instead, they are splintering us further out, and they're showing us, lives that are not real. Like I said at the beginning of this, it's all fake. It's all finely manicured and curated to show the best parts of people's lives, and they're not actually, nobody wants to see the negative stuff. Everybody wants the pretty picture. Why do you think artificial intelligence is now everywhere? Everyone wants that perfect simulation. Well, wake up, get out of the matrix. That is not reality. It never has been. And I think the more that people come aware of such things, the more that we're going to hopefully circle back to getting more actual human interaction. And that's another part of being, how physicality can help break up the mental blockage, is if you actually get out and you speak to another human. Go talk to your friends in person. Do a meetup at a coffee shop with a writers group. Visit your family. Life's short, honestly. So don't make the mistake of thinking you have all the time in the world to do these things either. And that's not to have you start doom thinking again and projecting into the future. It's just to inform that being around other people can also heighten the endorphin levels the same way that exercise would. And these are all easy steps that you can take to break up the monotony of just trying to power through your work, and it feels good too. All of this stuff feels good. Writing your thoughts down, exercising, hugs. It's been proven that hugging your family, your friends, your loved ones actually creates this soothing sense of comfort inside of your body. And my mom was a smart woman. She always used to say hugs are nice. Well, now it's scientifically proven that they are. Human interaction has somehow become very underrated for some reason. But I think the more that we get invaded with all the, fake imagery and videos where you don't even know what's real anymore. The only way you can still tell that video is not real is the eyes. You cannot replicate the eye the way that it is. Not yet, anyway. And that's the scary part. Soon we won't even probably really be able to tell at all. But that's one of the reasons I continue to actually come out here and do this rather than do a faceless podcast, which I'll probably start dropping some of those just so I can get more content out to you. But authenticity is underrated, and I think it's warranted and needed, and people are craving it now because, as I said, we're flooded with all the dystopian imagery of things are just cobbled together, and I'm tired of seeing it, to be honest with you. So I want to see you stay authentic in your creativity, because we need creatives. We need actual true writers and artists who are out there doing their best work, and they're pulling it from here, not from an artificial intelligence source, because true art and creativity is a beautiful thing. It's inherent from the soul, and it's your experiences of your lifetime culminated together, and you pour it out onto the page or a painting or whatever it is that you work on. In my case, writing, and a lot of you watching as well. So we want to maintain our mental faculties. And again, one of the ways to do that and maintain your creative clarity is to move around. Even if it's just getting up and stretching at your desk or doing a quick walk around the block, anything to break up get the physiology moving, get some energy flowing, get the blood in your veins going instead of just sitting stagnant with your thoughts, and then you start to spiral out. So really just get up. You can loosen up your neck, do some quick shoulder rolls, do like I said, some quick stretching, body weight exercises. And again, if you need any additional resources to help you in this area, I have a small guide, Staying Fit as You Sit. And it details all the things you can do right at your desk to get you to increase your movement. And if you increase your movement, it increases your productivity. So it's all hand in hand in that respect. And that is the thesis of this particular episode, and the podcast in and of itself. But I did, like I said, I wanted to make sure I touched on the mental health issues, particularly as it relates to what's going on in the world right now. And there's a lot of people, dealing with some heavy shit. And again, everything that's out there, from what I've seen anyway, is not helpful. And it's a lot of selling you snake oil, honestly. The other way to really combat any kind of mental stresses that you might be having is, and this goes back to seeing people in person, is to talk to somebody. If journaling's not enough of a physical outlet for you to get these thoughts out of you, find a church group, find a community center, find anyone you can to talk to about what's troubling you, what the particular block is that is bothering you, because you don't want to ever curl up with it. When you start to curl up with thoughts of perfectionism, anxiety, imposter syndrome, stuff like that, when you start to curl up with those thoughts, it can get pretty scary. There's a line in the movie Thunderbolts where they're talking about this exact thing, and they start to say how appealing those particular types of thoughts start to become. They're intoxicating, and you get wrapped up in the void, they call it. But we don't ever want that void to encompass us completely, where you feel like that's all there is. And we've all been there. But the thing is like, it's not true. There's always somebody that you can reach out to. There are people who want to actively listen. If you just, the thing is, we have, some of us have a lot of pride, too much pride, actually. And we white knuckle it, and we don't want to ask for help in any way. There's only so long you can do that before you absolutely break. So before that happens, please take some of these steps that I have outlined here to break free of like the the mental chains that are weighing you down, and help you to bust on through into creative clarity. And again, it's journaling, the physical act of journaling, getting outside, walking around, exercise, seeing people in person, talking to somebody. All of these actions are simple steps you can take. Again, get up from behind your desk and move around, play with your pets. But then jump, as soon as the pathway is clear in your mind, then you can get back into your creative work, and you'll feel renewed and refreshed. For example, I've had a book on the shelf for about 10 years now. And it's because a lot of other things have been taking my attention. And I realized if I put my focus back into my creativity, that will also help you to feel better. But you can't do that if you're blocked. And ways to help you to free yourself of all that mental anguish and all the stressors of life that are like impeding on your progress. So try some of these out. Let me know in the comments if any of those have helped you, or if you need more tips in this area. I will continue to put these podcast episodes out, maybe not as frequently, because that's another thing. You have to know your boundaries. And a lot of the times we take on too much. And even though we all think that we are super men and women, sometimes it's okay to say no to things, even to yourself. Even if you have lofty ambitions and you think that you can tackle everything, you'll come to find out that the body and mind can only take so much without giving it a chance to recharge. So it's okay to stop and recharge and then get back into it. You don't have to be going a million miles an hour. That's actually, I mean, if you really think about it, if a car was going as fast as it could, it would probably start to break down. You want to ease off that gas pedal a little bit and get into that zone that feels like you're flying, but you're not in the danger zone yet. I hope something in this episode helped. Please make sure to like and subscribe and send this video on to the creative in your life. And make sure you come back for continued episodes of the Creative Synergy Show. And I'll be here. Will you? Show's over, Synergy.